Okay, so I'm going to knock. If any of you can, try to knock back. We'll go. Now, Morgan. Who did that?
That was Nick.
All right, Morgan. So, is there a Morgan here?
And that was Nick that knocked. Why did he
I knocked. Yeah, but he knocked too.
But he knocked too.
What?
Yes.
Oh, fuck.
We are ECHOS, the East Coast Hauntings Operations Society. We are dedicated to exploring the unknown and uncovering what may exist in the realm of the paranormal. Our team members have extensive knowledge and over 40 years' experience in law enforcement, specifically in handling major crimes and investigations. We aim to utilize our skills and expertise effectively. What discoveries await us? What sounds might we hear? And what evidence can we capture? Here's the exciting part. You, the viewers and the audience, hold the ultimate authority in determining the validity of our findings. We simply present you with the evidence that we cannot explain or debunk. It is you, the audience, who decides whether it is paranormal, haunted, or merely nothing at all. Therefore, join us on the hunt, and let's see what we can uncover.
I mean, immediately it felt like it was right beside me. I got another boom, boom, boom. And I was like, what?
Where exactly are we at? What state, county?
We're in Greene County, Pennsylvania, in Waynesburg at the Greene County Historical Society Museum.
Can you tell us what is the history of this place and how long you've been here working?
So I've been here for a little over 6 years now, and the building has an extremely long and extensive history, but for the purpose of an interview, to not spend 45 minutes, it was built. The part that we're in now was built as a private family home in 1857. And long story short, the family that built it sort of couldn't quite afford what they had built. So they quickly sold it to the county. They sold it to a fellow named Robinson Downey, who in turn sold it to the county. And they started adding additions on in 1861 to convert it into an almshouse, poor farm, county home. The name that they use kind of varies depending on what decade you're looking at, but basically a place that was designed to house people who were, the term they used then was indigent, but people who were not able to survive on their own. In practice, however, it ended up being basically kind of a small scale mental asylum, something like that. Think something like your Trans-Allegheny lunatic asylum, but on a smaller scale. We are lucky enough to have our admissions ledger that started in 1862 with the first inmate, Isaac Pipes. And you see the exact same reasons of people being admitted here that you would, again, in a larger state hospital. Things like insanity, feeble-minded, idiot, very common word. And you could spend hours arguing what the term idiot meant at that time, but it's basically somebody who would not be able to, they probably had some sort of learning disability. You see people here who are crippled. You also see people who were dumped off here that their families just didn't want, or people that were picked up on the street homeless and a lot of times had some sort of psychological disability.
Now, were these people, could they volunteer to come in? Was there a court order that needed to happen? Or what were the conditions to come here?
So basically anything you could think of. Your family could drop you off here. You could, and people often were court ordered to be here. The directors of the poor could determine that somebody needed to come here. So really just about any circumstance that existed could end somebody up in a place like this.
And this building, I think you mentioned 1861, was it in operation during the Civil War?
Yes. So the first inmate came in June of 1862, and it was open clear through 1964. So throughout the bulk of the Civil War, all the way up until 64. In that time period, a little over 6,000 people lived here. Our records name 746 people that died in this building. However, not all of the entries are complete. In fact, few of the entries are complete. It is extremely likely that the number of deaths in this building was easily double that, perhaps even more.
Now, to your knowledge, at one time, how many people were housed here? Not including workers, but the actual patients.
So the building was designed to house no more than 40. It typically housed 90 and at times went up to 150.
And then how many workers would they have here on a given?
So depending on the time period, like up until about, let's say 1900, you didn't have workers here. You would have had the steward and his family, and they were the only workers per se that did anything here. The steward was in charge. His wife often was in charge of, making sure things were clean, this, that, the other thing. But all of the labor on site was done by the inmates. We get after the turn of the century, you do end up seeing like paid staff here. Like we know the room that's the spinning room upstairs was once a dorm for female staff here. And there were probably never more than, say, 20 people working here, in addition to the steward and his family.
Now, you had showed us earlier the chains that were in one of the rooms down in the basement.
Mm-hmm.
Were there any investigations, allegations of abuse towards the patients?
Yeah, so in an 1881 article that was published in Atlantic Monthly, I cannot remember the fellow's name, but I can get you that information later. The fella, he was going around the country and he was basically inspecting the conditions at various state hospitals, almshouses, poor farms, county homes, everything like that. And he did stop here, and this is one of the few places he mentioned by name. In fact, when he talked about this place, he called it the worst of its kind in the country. And he specifically mentioned hearing screams coming up from people who were kept chained up in the basement.
You said this place was in operation until the 1960s?
Yes.
What led to the closure of this?
So basically, this building had the last major alterations of this building happened in around 1912. And across the street in the 1930s, they started building the Curry home. When the central part of it was complete, it basically served as like an administrative building that took care of this as well. Had a few patients in it, but by the 1960s, 2 wings on either side were completed. A lot more modern of a facility. And when those were completed, they moved everyone here into that building across the street, and this became vacant. Then in 1968, our historical society moved from a building uptown in Waynesburg and took this place over.
Now, shifting gears to paranormal, at what point, what sparked that this place was being investigated for paranormal activities? I guess, was it word of mouth? Was it someone who had experience that told somebody, that got back to somebody?
Well, I mean, I can tell you, I for one did not really get into this kind of stuff or believe in this kind of stuff until my first week working here. It was December when I started here, wintertime, so I didn't even have any staff at the time, and we're closed in the winter, so I didn't have volunteers coming in. I was basically in here by myself most days doing paperwork in my office. And I would hear people walking around upstairs, like specifically in the 2 rooms above me. And I would go upstairs, check things out, and of course you didn't find anybody. And I had one volunteer that would usually stop in, check on things, check on me once a day. And I'd be like, what's going on? Have people ever broke into this building? Are they trying to camp out upstairs? He's like, don't worry about it. They're just getting used to you. You'll get used to it. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Eventually I did get used to it, but there have always been, for as long as I can remember, stories about this building being haunted. It wasn't until we actually had another YouTube channel here investigate that the word kind of got out and it became, a bit of a thing for us to do these investigations and let people come in.
So about when would you say this place was really on the map for paranormal investigations? Because we've seen other channels on the cable network, and things like that.
It was really in 2020, like right in the midst of COVID, when Paranormal Quest came here, and after they did their first video, we started getting lots of calls, and then we ended up, actually thanks to Ryan from Paranormal Quest, they got Destination Fear in contact with us. We ended up on one of their shows. Then the following year, Kindred Spirits came, and it's blown up since then.
Awesome. And so I think what we'll do is maybe walk around, you can show some hot spots.
Absolutely.
The claims that have been made.
Absolutely.
And we'll go from there.
That was my first time visiting the Greene County Poor Farm. My wife is from Greene County, so I have heard her talk about it. She took trips there for school, I was glad that I was able to go there and do a paranormal investigation. And it was short notice. It was last minute plans for us, but Matt, the curator, was good and really enjoyed his company and had to hear about the history of the location.
The Greene County Poor Farm / Museum. It was a good investigation. Matt did a really good job on giving the history and the background of the poor farm. He talked about the farming, the women's duties that were involved there, and there was children as well.
Greene County Historical Society was a cool place, a lot bigger than I thought. Pretty interesting stories that we were told and kind of learned while we were there.
The place was a housing area for drunks and criminals and the crazy people. And so the history, we were hoping for a really good hunt.
Matt did a really good job, and the whole staff did good taking care of the place and keeping up with the maintenance and taking care of it, just maintaining the history, and it just kind of felt like stepping back in time a little bit.
As the team members do initial walkthrough with Matt Cumberledge through the building, he's giving the history and the background of all the claims that's going on in the building. That is where things start to kick off.
Starting off when we were setting up, the first thing I remember about Greene County was Steve, Ronnie, and I were on the main floor, and we were walking with Matt towards the kitchen area as he was giving us some history. Chris was back at the command center setting it up, completing whatever needed to be completed.
Upon arriving, when we started setting up, noticed that there was footsteps upstairs on the second floor. So we were hearing things before we even got started, which was interesting. That always piques your interest when you start hearing things before the investigation begins.
I remember Steve was beside me, and I heard what sounded like walking upstairs on the second floor. And I remember grabbing Steve's arm, and I just pointed up, and he looked at me and he said, "You hear walking?" And it was like, yes, we heard walking. And it sounded like it was loud enough that it was clear cut what we were hearing. And it may have been somebody with boots or high heels. That was the first thing that we noticed about Greene County. And it was early in the evening. It was still light out. It was probably around between 4 and 5 because we were just starting.
We could hear what sounded like boots, someone walking upstairs in a pair of boots upstairs. And it was actually some of the claims that people had heard, people walking upstairs in boots. So that was before we had all the equipment fully unloaded and ready to go.
But Matt had told us previously that were some of the claims of the people, of the workers. The workers had it, and people that actually came to the museum as they heard walking on different floors when they felt nobody else was around. So that definitely was one of the claims. And we know no one else was in the building at that time.
The investigation really hadn't started yet, and we're already hearing the audible noises and the claims that people were heard walking upstairs and nobody was supposed to be up there. So unfortunately, we didn't capture that on camera, and I don't think we had any other experiences again. But it was nice that we heard it ourselves.
I was at command center setting up. I did not hear the footsteps, but with the team members hearing those footsteps, that's a good start for the case.
Actually up on the hill behind that.
Hey, real quick, they just heard footsteps right there. So.
Oh, really?
You did?
Yeah. They sound like boots scuffing upstairs walking.
Oh, really?
Outstanding.
Yeah.
It's already starting.
Yep.
Hey, it's our first episode, so we need this to be accurate.
Yes, indeed.
As we got the equipment set up, we began our investigation. Ronnie and Steve started in the main floor. Candy and I started in the women's ward. When Ronnie was at the command center, he noticed shadow movements in the women's ward.
So there was a moment during the night where I'm at the command center and I'm watching the monitor. I can't remember where everyone was at that moment, but I saw what looked like a shadow, someone walking past the light in the women's ward area. I radioed to Chris, or I hollered at him, hey, there was a shadow. So Chris and his mom went back upstairs to see if maybe we can debunk it or what the shadow was. And after maybe 5 or 10 minutes, they were walking up and down the corridor, and I saw the same exact shadow movement. So somehow the shadow was casting from upstairs back downstairs. So that was my experience, but it was debunked.
It was Candy and Chris was upstairs, and we debunked that and come to the conclusion that it was their lights from their cameras. So that was our first debunking.
We were also able to figure out the unknown light reflections that appeared to be casting what looked like shadows on the front staircase of the main floor.
There was one point in the evening we saw a reflection, and it was kind of in the upstairs in the main staircase. We saw movement in one of the cameras, like a light shifting movement. But we were able to debunk that as headlights outside on the main road that passes by the property. It took us a while to figure that one out because we tried to replicate it and we couldn't, but it was being caused by traffic on the roadway outside.
The ECHOS team continued to stay split up, with Candy, Nick, and I in the dungeon. Ronnie and Steve were in the women's ward this time.
There were, at some point in the evening, we were doing an EVP session, and we heard audibly with our ear some noises. Ultimately, we were able to debunk that, Chris and I. It's just foot traffic on the outside of the building and the property. The sound was carrying a good way, but we were able to debunk that as being persons outside the property.
After the investigation, I was listening to my recordings. I believe throughout that night, at least 2 digital recorders that I left stationary. One was in the women's ward, and there was one particular like audible sound. I could hear someone screaming. So I contacted Chris. I sent him the file, had him listen to it. He said him and Nick were actually heard that coming from the outside. So that was debunked too.
I remember when I was downstairs with Nick, we remember hearing that scream that Ronnie caught on the EVP, and I was able to tell him this. I know that actually came from outside. Somebody walking by decided to do a little scream or yell. Don't know why, but that's what we caught. Now, these are things that we were able to debunk with our own equipment. The claims of shadows that staff members and visitors have seen in the past, we're hoping to still catch on camera. As the night went on, things started to take a turn for us, especially upstairs on the second floor in the women's ward.
So this would have been the female ward. This tends to be one of the more active spots in the building. We've had people up here experience voices. We've had things thrown at people, nothing big, little things. Down here at the very end of the hallway, on multiple occasions, we have had people catch very, very, very clear and audible footsteps. And of course, there's my lovely friend Matilda right there in the hallway. She is kind of our mascot. Interesting point of fact, the dress that she's wearing was donated to this facility in the 1930s by the WPA to be worn by the female inmates. So she's very period correct for living up here. Other activity that goes on up here is a lot of it tends to take place down at the very end of the hallway here. A lot of it tends to take place in that room. We have had people tell us that there's a lady named Margaret that's attached to the butter churn in this room. I've experienced this myself. Temperature changes happen in this room quite a bit. You'll feel presences in here. You will feel people brush up against you. A lot of activity tends to happen down at this end.
So this is the most active.
Yeah, at least by my experience, this hallway tends to be the most active. But with that being said, we've had stuff happen in the whole building.
As the team regrouped at the command center and everyone was accounted for, we noticed a strange anomaly happening on the stationary camera in the women's ward.
But while we were there, we started noticing on the stationary camera on the second floor in the women's wing, this dust, what we thought was dust. You could see the bats flying back and forth. We thought that maybe the bats were kicking it up, but these snowflakes or dust started in waves coming across the camera. And thought maybe it was the bats were doing it. So we tried to go about debunking that. Chris had went back upstairs, and as soon as he got on the second floor, it stopped. And when he would leave, it would start again. We looked for air movement. We had previously turned off all the fans because that's how they were trying to keep air moving in the building, was with the fans. Of course, if the fan's going, you can't hear. So we shut down all the fans. There was no air moving. And we checked for cracks and open windows, found none. We have no idea what that was. So that was pretty interesting, and we haven't been able to debunk that yet. But you, the audience, can decide. All we're doing is presenting the evidence to you.
I wouldn't call them orbs, so to speak, but a lot of it appeared to be dust, but it wasn't dust. It didn't appear to be. We tried to debunk that it was dust, that it was associated with some movement or HVAC movement or something like that, but we were unable to really verify or debunk what that movement was on the second floor at the end of the hallway.
To me, it looked like a blizzard. Like we had a camera outside, and it was just pouring the snow. Chris went upstairs to investigate it. Why? What was the source of that? What was causing it? Tried to debunk it. He couldn't debunk it. Leaves, and it happens again. So it's almost like it would just happen when we're watching on camera. We go to investigate it. It stops, leave, and it happens again. So no explanation for that.
The disturbance of the dust was very unusual for all of us. But as soon as I walked upstairs, that's when it stopped. They radioed me, said, just stopped, it's gone. I took my flashlight out. I moved the flashlight around, trying to figure out if I could see reflections of the dust, trying to feel any air movement coming in. There was nothing of that would make that dust appear to look like that on the stage care or make it happen like that. From Matt's claims from the women's ward, he was not wrong about a few things. We did catch some stuff that we can't explain, can't debunk, we can't even figure out. Here we go.
Generally speaking, I don't think there's anything particularly negative here. In fact, most of the experiences that we have tend to be more positive in nature, and a lot of it, like, you can tell they're curious about what we do. Like, we've spent the last 6 years kind of renovating and fixing this place up, and at times doing like crazy amounts of work. And that always pick things up, and that's when you'll see, like, you might see somebody poke around a doorway that's not there and have a look at what you're doing, or lights will go on and off and things like that.
Got a mixture of intelligent and residual haunting?
Yeah, again, by my experience, I would say there's a lot more intelligent than residual.
Let's go ahead and play this clip and see what you all think.
Truck going by.
Ladies, I'm going to knock. If any of you can, try to knock back a little bit. No, Morgan. Who did that?
That was Nick.
All right, Morgan. So is there a Morgan here?
And that was Nick that knocked. Why did he
I knocked. Yeah, but he knocked too.
But he knocked too.
What?
Yes. So when Steve knocked and then Nick knocked.
I'm going to do it again.
All right, he's going to do it again.
Ladies, I'm going to knock again.
He's going to knock again.
Come on, ladies, don't be scared. You can come out and talk to us.
So right after you knocked, that was Nick that was knocking.
That's weird. That is weird. That is weird.
Like he did like what, 2 or 3 knocks?
Yeah.
Right after you did that. I was like, why is he knocking?
So the knock was actually pretty exciting moment for all of us.
And then the next highlight of the night, it was me, Ronnie, Chris, and Nick. Second floor, once again, the women's ward. They had set up in a room, and Nick was getting ready to do the Estes method.
Nick is in one of the side rooms. That was probably an old bedroom at one point. he had the headphones on, and we were doing the Estes method, so he can't hear us. He's just repeating what he hears through the spirit box, and we're asking questions.
I was sitting on the floor, had headphones on, and was repeating anything I would say. So Chris, Steve, and Ronnie were out in the hallway asking questions to see if they could hear a response through me, through the headphones that I would repeat. And I didn't have any idea of the questions they were asking or what they were doing.
Chris is to my right. I believe he's like standing in the doorway closest to Nick. I'm in the hallway, and I'm looking at Steve. Steve's directly in front of me. I got the camera on Steve, and Chris has a camera on Nick. There was also a stationary camera in that same hallway that was on us. So at one point, Steve does the knocking game. So he did 3 knocks to see if we could get someone try to repeat the knocks.
I started walking down the hallway. I was trying to do an EVP, get something going. So I did the knock test. And I said, okay, lady, I believe I said, okay, ladies, I will knock 3 times, respond. So I give 3 really hard knocks on the door frame.
Truck going by.
Ladies, I'm going to knock. If any of you can, try to knock back. We'll go.
I mean, immediately it felt like it was right beside me. I got another boom, boom, boom.
No, Morgan. He did that.
That was Nick.
All right, Morgan.
And I was like, what? I turned around. I thought maybe one of them guys had done it. They thought Nick had done it.
Steve does 3 knocks. To my right, I hear 3 knocks clear as day, and I instantly thought it was Nick that did it. It was that loud, that audible. It sounded like Nick was doing the knocks.
Now, here's the thing. I was standing in the doorway, up against the door frame, holding the camera. When I was holding the camera, I was looking and showing Nick at the same time. We had 2 cameras on Nick, the one I was holding, the one on the floor. As I'm holding that camera, you see my head snap to the right when I hear that knock.
Truck going by.
Ladies, I'm going to knock. If any of you can, try to knock back. We'll go. No, Morgan. He did that.
That was Nick.
All right, Morgan. So is there a Morgan here?
I could actually feel the vibration of the knock, and I automatically assumed it was Nick and debunked it as Nick.
And I came to learn later that Steve knocked 3 times out in the hallway. And I couldn't hear anything that was going on around, so I didn't hear that knock. And then Chris came back in and got my attention and asked me if I had knocked. Well, I had not, but I was told that there were 3 distinct knocks that came from the room that I was in. And it was not me. I was sitting on the floor, eyes closed, listening to the headphones. So I was not responsible for that knock, which was pretty cool to learn later on.
And I kind of brushed it off as, well, that was Nick. And then we were like, wait a minute, why would Nick knock? Like, how would he have heard Steve say to do the 3 knocks? So I was anxious to get that session over with so we could ask Nick, did you do the knocks? And that's when he confirmed that he didn't do it. So that was a really exciting moment for us with that piece of evidence we caught.
So is there a Morgan here?
And that was Nick that knocked. Why did he
I knocked. Yeah, but he knocked too.
Did he knock too?
What?
Yes.
So once we were able to determine, hey, I wasn't Nick, and we caught an actual knock that came from an unknown source, paranormal, but it wasn't Nick. But Chris had sent me the video, and it clearly shows there's Nick. He's sitting down on the floor. I believe he's got his hands to his, like the headphones. He's trying to focus and pay attention to what's coming through the spirit box. And there's no knocking from Nick whatsoever.
But here's the thing. Later, when I reviewed the evidence, I was watching Nick on the camera. He never knocked. Now I got something.
Come on, ladies, don't be scared. You can come out and talk to us.
So right after you knocked, that was Nick that was knocking.
That's That is weird.
Like he did like what, 2 or 3 knocks
Yeah.
right after you did that. I was like, why is he knocking?
You know, everything was on camera. So clearly you can see that Nick did not do the knocking. And everybody's on camera, so you can see all our hand positions. Nobody did it. That's when we can't debunk. But again, you, the audience, you watch it, you decide.
So what was it, or who was it that knocked back at us? What caused so much dust to appear and just vanish? Is there still something or someone we heard walking above us before we even got started? And is this the same someone or something who caught our attention in the women's ward? We provided you the findings and the evidence. You, the viewers and the audience, make the final decision. Tell us your opinions in the comments. Discuss it between each other. Is it haunted? Was something reaching out to us and getting our attention? Or is it merely a coincidence of a noise caught or what was caught on camera, not to be considered haunted? You make the choice and the ultimate decision. As we wrap up part 1 of the Greene County Historical Society, stay tuned for part 2 and what we caught in the dungeon. Also, ECHOS is the first ghost hunting team to ever have access to the attic to investigate. Don't forget to subscribe below so you don't miss out on any future ghost hunts, and continue to join us on the hunt.